Hi, this is Rachel Israel with STEM News and Global World Report. We have breaking news that will have a huge impact on the global scene in the very near future. Let's take a look at what's going on around the world.
History, it is often said, does not repeat itself, but it rhymes. Nowhere is this adage more chillingly relevant than in the stark parallels between the fall of the Roman Republic and the current state of American democracy. The Roman Republic, once a beacon of civic virtue and republican ideals, succumbed to a slow but steady decay, eroded from within by many of the same forces that threaten American democracy today. The parallels are striking and deeply unsettling. The Roman Republic, like the American Republic, prided itself on its system of checks and balances, its tradition of civic engagement, and its commitment to the rule of law. Yet over time these very pillars of Roman democracy were undermined by a toxic brew of political polarization, economic inequality, and the erosion of democratic norms. The decline of the Roman Republic was not a sudden collapse, but a slow and insidious process. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, inflicted over generations by self-serving elites, a complacent citizenry, and a political system that proved unable to adapt to the challenges of its time. The question that haunts us now as we look at the state of American democracy is whether we are on a similar path, and if so, whether we can change course before it is too late. One of the most striking parallels between the fall of the Roman Republic and the current state of American democracy is the degree to which both societies have been riven by political polarization and gridlock. In the late Roman Republic, the political scene was dominated by two bitterly opposed factions, the optimates, representing the interests of the aristocracy, and the populares, who championed the concerns of the common people. These factions were not merely political parties in the modern sense, they were deeply entrenched power blocks, each with their own networks of patronage, their own military forces, and their own willingness to resort to violence to achieve their aims. The result was a political system characterized by dysfunction and gridlock. The Roman Senate, once a forum for reasoned debate and compromise, became a battleground for these warring factions. Political violence became commonplace, and the rule of law was increasingly disregarded. The institutions of the Republic, weakened by years of internal strife, proved unable to cope with the ambitions of powerful individuals like Julius Caesar, who ultimately brought an end to the Republic and ushered in the era of the Roman Empire. In the United States today, we see echoes of this Roman dysfunction in our own political system. The two major political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, have become increasingly polarized, with each side demonizing the other and viewing compromise as a form of betrayal. The result is a political system characterized by gridlock, inaction, and a growing sense of frustration and cynicism among the American people. Another striking parallel between the fall of the Roman Republic and the current state of American democracy is the role played by wealth and economic inequality in undermining democratic institutions and norms. In the late Roman Republic, the gap between the rich and the poor grew into a chasm. A small elite of wealthy families controlled the levers of power, using their wealth to buy influence, manipulate elections, and shape public policy to their advantage. This concentration of wealth and power had a corrosive effect on Roman democracy. The wealthy elite, insulated from the struggles of ordinary Romans, became increasingly indifferent to the common good. They used their wealth to advance their own interests, often at the expense of the majority. The Roman Senate, once a bastion of republican virtue, became a playground for the rich and powerful, who used their influence to enrich themselves and their cronies. In the United States today, we see a similar dynamic at play. The gap between the rich and the poor has been widening for decades, reaching levels not seen since the Gilded Age. This concentration of wealth at the top has given the wealthy and powerful an outsized influence on American politics. They use their wealth to fund political campaigns, lobby for favorable legislation, and shape the public discourse through their control of media outlets. The parallels between the fall of the Roman Republic and the current state of American democracy are stark and unsettling. They should serve as a wake-up call to all Americans who cherish our democratic institutions and values. The Roman Republic did not succumb to external enemies but to its own internal weaknesses. It was destroyed by the very forces that threaten American democracy today: political polarization, economic inequality, the erosion of democratic norms, and a failure of leadership. The question that confronts us now is whether we can learn from the mistakes of the past and chart a different course for our future. Can we bridge the partisan divide that threatens to tear our country apart? Can we create an economy that works for all Americans, not just the wealthy and powerful few? Can we restore faith in our democratic institutions and inspire a new generation of Americans to embrace the responsibilities of citizenship? The answers to these questions are far from certain. The challenges we face are daunting, and the stakes could not be higher. The future of American democracy, like the future of the Roman Republic before it, hangs in the balance. The choice is ours to make. We can choose the path of division, gridlock, and decline, or we can choose the path of unity, reform, and renewal. The fate of our republic may well depend on the choices we make in the years to come.
Join me as I dive deep into the numbers and try to figure out if the U.S. is really headed for an economic disaster. The health of the U.S. economy has always been a topic of great interest, and today's context is no exception. With the ongoing pandemic, rising global tensions, and shifting economic landscapes, it's more important than ever to examine the potential risks and challenges that could lead to economic disaster. When we take a closer look at the U.S. economy, several key challenges immediately come to mind. One of the most pressing concerns is inflation, which has been steadily creeping up over the past few years. As prices rise, the purchasing power of the average American decreases, making it harder for families to make ends meet. Another major issue is the country's soaring debt levels. With a national debt of over $28 trillion, the U.S. is on track to spend more on interest payments alone than on vital programs like Medicare and Social Security. This could have devastating consequences for future generations, who will be forced to foot the bill for today's fiscal recklessness. Unemployment rates are also a major concern, as the traditional 9-to-5 job market continues to evolve and shift. With automation and AI on the rise, many workers are finding themselves replaced by machines, leading to widespread job insecurity and uncertainty. As we navigate these complex challenges, it's essential to understand the complexities and interconnections between each of these factors. For instance, rising inflation can lead to higher interest rates, which in turn can stifle economic growth and increase unemployment. Let's take a closer look at the current state of inflation, which has been hovering around 2% for the past year. While this may seem like a relatively modest increase, many experts warn that it's only a matter of time before prices start to rise more rapidly. In fact, the Federal Reserve has already signaled its intention to raise interest rates in response to growing inflationary pressures. One of the most concerning aspects of the current economic landscape is the sheer size of the national debt. With a debt-to-GDP ratio of over 100%, the U.S. is in uncharted territory, and many experts warn that this could lead to a debt crisis in the not-too-distant future. According to a report by the Congressional Budget Office, the U.S. is on track to spend almost 200% of its GDP on interest payments alone by 2050. This is simply unsustainable, and will require drastic changes to the country's fiscal policies in order to avoid financial catastrophe. As we explore the implications of these challenges, it's clear that the U.S. economy is facing a perfect storm of risks and uncertainties. But what does the future hold, and are there any experts who are sounding the alarm? One of the most shocking predictions comes from economist Peter Schiff, who warns that the U.S. is on track for a major economic crisis within the next decade. According to Schiff, the combination of rising debt levels, inflation, and economic instability could lead to a collapse of the U.S. dollar, and a resulting depression that would make the 2008 financial crisis look like a walk in the park. This is a stark warning, and one that should give us all pause. The idea that the U.S. economy could be facing a crisis of this magnitude is a sobering reminder of the need for vigilance and action. So what have we learned, and what can we take away from this exploration of the U.S. economy? It's clear that the country is facing a range of complex and interconnected challenges, from inflation and debt to unemployment and economic instability. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of economics. If you're as concerned as I am about the future of the U.S. economy, be sure to check out our next video, where we'll be exploring some of the most promising strategies for recovery and growth. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation.
Well, that's the news for tonight. Thank you so much for continually supporting our content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they would find it interesting as well. We're very excited to continue this journey with you. We thank you all for bringing certain stories to our attention, and for continually keeping us updated with certain events around the world.